Welcome to the Naturally Thin for Life podcast. I'm going to teach you how to get out of your diet brain so that you too can be naturally thin for life. No counting, restricting, or obsessing. I am going to take the mystery out of it for you so that you can become naturally thin starting today. Are you ready? Let's do this. Hello, friends. Welcome to this special bonus podcast episode. I want to invite you to join me for a live training that I'm doing. It is called Break Any Eating Habit. And I want to share with you on this bonus podcast episode a little bit about what we are going to be doing in the training, how you can join us for this free training, and really what it's about and why I'm doing it. So you can decide to join us, hopefully. And what I have noticed and what I have seen time and time again for myself and also for all of the women in the Naturally Thin for Life program is when they become willing to go through the process that I teach them in how to release themselves from emotional hunger, how to release themselves from these tense, tight, what Joe Dispenza calls survival emotions, where you think of them as like these stress response emotions that so many of us feel and so many of us carry around throughout our day. And we're just kind of in constant states of restlessness and stress and anxiety and panic and overwhelm. And we're just kind of like frantically doing, like even when we're being productive and even when we're being focused and even when we're at work, kind of like knocking something out and we're just like doing and doing and doing, we kind of just carry around with us this very kind of tense, tight feeling all of the time. And so I see this very commonly in those of us that are what we kind of colloquially, is that the right word, colloquially call type A people, is that we are very good at operating with this like tense, tight, pressury state more often than not. We tell ourselves we're like really good under pressure. And we have these very strong overthinker, overanalyzer type brains that then often leads to a relationship with food, a relationship with our bodies that we don't want and that doesn't serve us. And what I've seen time and time again is when women go through and learn the process that I'm going to teach you in this live training, Break Any Eating Habit, it's like the doors open and the windows open and they see how they become naturally thin for the rest of their lives. They see how they can actually feel the calm sense of control that they've been searching for. Because so many of us that are in these tense, tight emotions more often than not, we're like running around. We're trying to kind of control everything. We're trying to control what we're doing at work. We're trying to control our schedule. We're trying to control our kids. We're trying to control our husband. We're trying to control what we're having for dinner. And we find ourselves like going out for dinner. And if the meal that we ordered isn't perfect, like we kind of like have a little bit of a freak out moment. And it's nothing other than it's just kind of our memorized way of being. And our bodies memorize these states that we get really familiar with. And so in this training, Break Any Eating Habit, I walk you through some of the brain science behind why this happens and how we can break these habits that aren't serving us, how we can stop feeling like we're eating against our own will sometimes, how we can easily fall in love with our relationship with hunger, how we can easily eat food that serves us and desire food that serves us so that we can easily stop eating, so that we stop thinking about food when we're not hungry. And it really all comes down to what I'm going to walk you through in this live training. So I'm doing this live training, Break Any Eating Habit, and I'm actually going to share a clip of it with you. So yes, you did hear me right. It will be live and it's upcoming. However, I was researching for this live training and I put the outline together and I wrote the slides for it and I was practicing it and recording it so that I could watch it back and see if there's anything I wanted to add or change. And so I recorded it and I started watching it back and I just thought like, you know what? It just feels like the stars have aligned. I'm like, this is just what people really need to hear and people really need to understand. And it's come from my own kind of constant lifelong learner quest to just understand the why and why we are the way we are and how we become who we want to be and how we make a change. And the most significant change I ever had was in my relationship with my body and in my relationship with food. And I've since had very significant changes in my own life after working through that in my relationship with food. And so I'm just fascinated by us as habitual creatures. I'm fascinated by us as humans. And so I've been doing a lot of like nerdy research because like that's just me. I could totally nerd out. I love understanding things in detail, and I love understanding the why behind we do what we do and the why behind the changes that we make so that I can understand it and so that I can share it with all of you. If any of you have been following me for a while, you know my background was as a CPA, and I did a lot of technical accounting research. And so my zone of genius is very much so understanding very complicated, minute detail, understanding it, synthesizing it, and then being able to communicate it and articulate it in a very concise, clear, simple way. And so that's really what I've done in this training is I have understood a lot of the brain science and the research behind why we have the habits we have, and so how then to break them. And I apply this training obviously specifically in our relationship with food. And so what we're going to do on this training is I'm going to teach you why you have some of these habits and how to then break the habits in the most simple, effective way. And I'm going to walk you through why we have the habits, give you some of the brain science. I'm going to walk you through how to change the habit. And I'm going to give you a very structured step-by-step process that I teach inside of the Naturally Thin for Life program. I'm going to walk you through how exactly to break any eating habit in the most painless, efficient, effective way. And then we're going to do that for the first part of the training. And then I'm going to coach you. I want to bring you on live. And so we're going to be on Zoom. You can either come on live on the screen and I'm going to coach you. I'm going to answer any of your questions, or we can communicate through the Q&A function on Zoom. And I want to just answer any of your questions and coach you real time from anything that you learned in the training. And I'm going to walk you through how to apply it. And then you're going to actually apply the step-by-step process I teach you. And then I'm going to answer any of your questions and or coach you on the application of that process, because I want you to walk away with this training knowing exactly how to break any eating habit. So this training is going to be live at noon on July 28th, 2022. So that's Thursday, noon Central, July 28th, 2022. And you can go to lauradixoncoaching.com/habit, and you can register there for the training, and make sure you also register if you want the replay as well. So again, that's lauradixoncoaching.com/habit to register, and also if you want the replay. And we'll also put that link in the show notes. So what I want you to do, right, is imagine you come to this training, it's at noon Central, and you come to the training, you're going to learn why you have some of the habits you have, how to break those habits. I'm going to walk you through the step-by-step process. I'm going to answer any of your questions. I'm going to coach you so that then when the training's over at 1:00 and maybe your 3 p.m. restless afternoon snack monster comes around, you know exactly what to do in the moment where you have that urge to eat, that desire to eat, but you know your naturally thin self doesn't have that habit. Or later that evening, you go to make dinner and you find yourself wanting to kind of have a meal, making dinner and prepping dinner, but you know your naturally thin self doesn't have that habit. Or it's 8:00 p.m. later that day and you are reaching for your second or third round of snacks in your small ramekin bowl or whatever it is, and you're sitting on the couch and you're like, I know my naturally thin self doesn't have this habit. You can use the step-by-step process you learn in this training to break that habit. And I want more than anything to show you how simple it is, how effective it is, and how very painless it is, how we don't need excessive amounts of willpower, how we don't need to force ourselves and restrict ourselves and deprive ourselves into doing something that we don't actually want to do. So I want to invite you to come to this live training, Break Any Eating Habit, where I'm going to teach you why we have some of the habits we have, some of the brain science behind why we have developed these habits, because for me, I just know when I really understand the why, it makes it so much easier for me to not only understand the solution and understand why we're using that solution, but it's like my brain is just like, I get why I'm changing it. I get how to change it. And it's like, it's just the most solid place for me to make a change from. And that's what I want to share with all of you in this live training. And then the last 5 or 10 minutes I have reserved for the training for you to ask me any questions questions about what we do inside the Naturally Thin for Life program, what we do beyond what I share with you in this training, and I will share with you what's coming up for those of you that are in the Naturally Thin for Life program and those of you that want to join me in the Naturally Thin for Life program, because I want you to see. And that's why I'm going to really dive deep in this live training into the actual step-by-step process. I want you to see the ease and the calm control that is available to you in a fraction of the time and with a fraction of the energy and effort that you probably think it requires. So again, the live training is Break Any Eating Habit. We are doing it live, noon Central on July 28th, 2022. You can get the link to register and register at lauradixoncoaching.com/habit. Register there and make sure you register so that you also get the replay. And now I'm going to just give you a snippet into the training. So like I said before, I planned the training, I outlined the training, I did my research for the training, and I practiced the training so I could just record it and see if there was anything that I wanted to change and adjust. And there are a couple of things I'm going to tweak and change, but I watched the training back and I just thought, like, yes, like this is it. I cannot wait to share this. I cannot wait for you to experience this. And I cannot wait for you to see how close being naturally thin and the freedom of being naturally thin is to you right now where you stand today. So I'm going to kind of let this now go into a few minutes of the snippet of the very first part of the training. And that's just the beginning. There is so much more to come. And the step-by-step process to break any eating habit will be live in that training. So I can't wait to share it with you, and I will see you all there. All right, friends, I am going to walk you through in this training how to break any eating habit, because so many of us know what we want to be doing, but there's a disconnect between what we know, the information we've accumulated. A lot of us are like fanatic researchers and we understand what we want to be doing. We understand the habits that we want, but we struggle with the disconnect between knowing it and then actually doing it with the ease that we really want. And so before we get started, a brief introduction. My name is Laura Dixon. I spent, for as long as kind of I can remember, I remember just being a child and wanting to have different eating habits, different eating behaviors. I remember going to friends' houses who were always smaller than me, and I'm 5'11". So not only was I tall, and then when I was carrying extra weight and more weight than I wanted, I just always felt very big. I felt very awkward. And I remember going to friends' houses and having the habit of just being like, what's in their cabinet? Like, I think they have Gushers. I think they have fruit roll-ups. I think they have this, like the rainbow goldfish. I just remember thinking about like, when is it snack time? When is it snack time? When is it snack time? And we'd be like jumping on the trampoline, and I would be thinking like, they don't seem to be thinking about Gushers right now. Like, what's happening for me in my brain? And I have been for well over a decade, like obsessed with like, how do naturally thin women think differently? And what I'm going to teach you in this training is what was missing for me for the longest time. I knew all the information. I am a CPA formerly before I became a coach who now helps women become naturally thin. And in my career as a CPA, I did a lot of technical accounting research. I was very good at understanding research. I was very good at synthesizing complex information into very simple, easy, digestible formats for other people to consume. And so I had this great ability, a very, what I call, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, like a high achieving overanalyzer, overthinking brain, but I couldn't figure out how to make being naturally thin easy for myself until I figured out what I'm going to teach you in this video. So what we're going to do today is I've divided up the training into 3 parts. So I'm going to teach you how to break any habit. We're going to practice it. And if you have any questions, I want to bring you on and coach you. And then I'm going to answer any questions. I'm going to share with you in the last couple of minutes how you can dive deeper into this work, how you can really make this permanent change for yourself as the key to being naturally thin inside of my Naturally Thin for Life program, which is designed specifically for very high achieving, successful, ambitious women who think about themselves as like kind of just like always thinking, always on the go in our brains. We're like the overthinkers, the overanalyzers, the to-do listers. It is designed specifically for you so that you can make these changes easily and effortlessly so that you can have the naturally thin body that you want for the rest of your life and never worry ever again about the weight coming back. So we are going to dive right in. And I'm going to share with you an image in a minute so you can just kind of see what it looks like in your mind. But I want you to really think about your brain as three primary parts, three primary brains. Now, there are some other kind of pieces in your brain, but I really want you to think about it in this way so that you just have an understanding. Because when you understand the brain science, you will be able to make a change much more rapidly because you understand the why of what we're going to be doing and how I'm going to teach you the step-by-step process to actually break those habits. So we have three brains. We have our neocortex, which is our thinking brain. And it's kind of like the gray matter that we imagine, kind of like that outer, thicker layer of our brain. And it's the most evolved part of our brain. Our neocortex houses our frontal lobe and our prefrontal cortex, which is the thinking part of our brain that can think about the future, that can invent, that can plan, that can think about time. It's the part of our brain that can kind of watch ourselves think, right? When we're like in the car, thinking about what we're thinking about, right? So that's that part of our brain, our neocortex. I want you to think about it as our thinking part of our brain. And it's the most evolved part of our brain. And then we also have our second brain, which is our limbic brain. So our thinking brain is kind of on the outside, and our limbic brain is more towards the center. And the limbic part of our brain is our feeling brain. It's where our emotions are housed. And it is what drives all of our doing. And so there's our thinking part of our brain, and then there's the emotional part of our brain that drives all of our action and inaction. And then we have our cerebellum, which is our subconscious brain. It's our reptilian brain. It's our like being brain. It's the part of our brain that runs, our heart rate beating. It's the part of our brain that runs us blinking. It's the part of our brain too, where when we rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And we have these subconscious habits that we're not even necessarily aware of. So if you have any eating habits where it just feels like you're doing something against your own will, it's most likely housed in your subconscious brain, in your cerebellum. And the missing link between what we know, our thinking brain, our understanding brain, our intellectual brain, and what we're doing and who we're being, if you think about this as our thinking brain, is our neocortex, our limbic part of our brain is our doing brain, and our subconscious cerebellum is our being brain, just like who we're being without any thought. So if you find yourself being a version of you and having these habits that you're like, I don't want this. I don't know how I'm doing this. I have all this information to the contrary. I want to make a change, but I'm just not being the person who doesn't think about food when she's not hungry. I'm not being the person who can watch a TV show and not think about food. For me as a little kid, I wasn't being the person who would just play on a trampoline with my friends and not be thinking about the Gushers. And so what is missing for most of us very intellectual, high-achieving, ambitious women is this feeling piece, is this limbic part of our brain. Friend, if you are loving what you are learning here on the podcast, you have to come check out my Naturally Thin for Life program. It is my on-demand lifetime access program where I teach you brand new concepts not taught here on the podcast. And I will walk you through exactly how to implement all of the tools I teach you here so that they become just a part of you. You will learn exactly how to understand your specific brain and your specific body so that you become naturally thin for the rest of your life and you no longer struggle with your weight. Inside of the Naturally Thin for Life program, you can also receive live help so that you consistently make progress and reach your goal. I will teach you how to accelerate your naturally thin journey in a sustainable way so that the change becomes permanent. The best part is that it's risk-free. You either love it or I will give you your money back. If you are ready to finally be naturally thin for life, join us at lauradixoncoaching.com/work with me. That's LAURADIXON coaching.com and click on the Work With Me tab. I cannot wait to see you there.